Hello everybody, I'm Silleaf. This will be part 2, the final part to the one-shot entitled Idiots in Bloom by Chloe Oodles on AO3. Something was wrong. It had been a week since Izuku had talked to Katsuki. Well, that was a bit of an exaggeration. Izuku had responded when Katsuki tried to talk to him, but his responses were always curt, never saying more than he needed to. His usual sunny smiles always seemed forced. Katsuki still saw Izuku around. It was inevitable when they were in the same class and dorm building, but Izuku always had some excuse to leave the area anytime Katsuki was nearby. After swallowing his pride, Katsuki decided that the only option was to follow Izuku. He was given the perfect opportunity when he noticed Izuku leaving the cafeteria with Uraraka. He just had to stay around the corner of the building they stopped behind. "I think you should see a doctor, Deku-kun," Uraraka suggested in a worried tone. "That cough has been going on for a while now, and it only seems to be getting worse." That was true. Katsuki did notice Izuku coughing a lot lately. He never wore a mask, or avoided others, or acted sick, though. Izuku sighed heavily. "Actually, I know what the problem is, but it's not contagious, don't worry." "Now I'm even more worried," Uraraka responded. "You know you could tell me anything." I know, it's..." Izuku began, but was interrupted by a coughing fit. It started out small, but soon became a violent hacking. "Deku-kun," Uraraka gasped. Are those flower petals? Izuku, do you have Hanahaki disease?" Katsuki felt his heart drop. Izuku panted to catch his breath once his fit had subsided. "Please don't tell anyone," he said in a small, hoarse whisper. "Can I look at them?" she asked gently. Izuku held out the petals for her to inspect. Despite the blood staining them, they were yellow. Some a more pale shade, wider and flat. Some darker and ruffled. "Those look like camellia petals to me," Uraraka explained. Before Izuku could ask how she knew, Uraraka continued. "I've always been pretty interested in flowers and their language. Can you tell me what they mean?" "Lawning," she answered. Katsuki turned to go back inside. Hanahaki. Katsuki knew what that meant. Izuku was in love with someone and his feelings weren't returned. Izuku was in love with someone and it wasn't him. It couldn't be him. If it was, then he would never gotten Hanahaki. Katsuki was sure it was obvious that he was in love with Izuku. Katsuki couldn't sleep that night. No matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't stop thinking about Izuku loving someone else. Just when he was starting to think that he might have had a real chance. Katsuki knew he was cocky, but had he really deluded himself so badly? In the back of his mind, he felt like he could never deserve Izuku, but he had tried so hard to make amends for his past behavior. Who could Izuku possibly be in love with? And who in their right mind could possibly not love Izuku? A sudden tingle formed in Katsuki's chest. He supposed it was just the beginning stages of his heart breaking, but then the coughing started. Coughing followed by choking on flower petals. How fucking ironic that Katsuki would develop Hanahaki from witnessing Izuku suffering from the same affliction. He knew damn well how rare the disease was. And could his body seriously not come up with something more creative than red rose petals? Something with such a well-known appearance and symbolism almost added more insult to the situation. Katsuki threw the petals in the trash can by his desk, covering them up with tissues so he could pretend they weren't there. The next morning, he decided he wouldn't feel sorry for himself. He could deal with his issues later. For now, he was angry. Not angry for himself, though. He was angry for Izuku. How dare someone put Izuku through this torment? Izuku was the most hardworking, selfless, caring, beautiful person in the world. Anyone would be lucky to be loved by Izuku. It shouldn't be possible for anyone not to love the adorable little nerd. Katsuki may not be the one Izuku loved, but damn it, he deserved happiness. Katsuki was going to figure out who Izuku was in love with and give them a piece of his mind. Izuku was nowhere to be found before the start of classes. Not that Katsuki was surprised. He had been showing up to classes as late as possible for days now. That just meant that Bakugo would have to wait for lunchtime. As soon as Aizawa dismissed the class, Katsuki was out of his seat. Unfortunately, so was Izuku. "Todoroki!" Izuku called out, practically running to his friend. "Can I talk to you outside?" "Oh, sure." Todoroki seemed surprised, but followed. Katsuki followed several feet behind. He wondered if Aisha was the one Izuku was in love with. The thought made his lungs squeeze painfully and his throat tickle, but he fought off the feeling. He had to make sure. Izuku led Todoroki under a tree. He seemed nervous about what he was about to say. Katsuki clutched his throat. "Sorry this is so sudden," Izuku began shyly, "but I have to tell you something very important." Todoroki gave a polite nod, urging Izuku to continue. "Do you know about Hanahaki?" Izuku asked, without meeting the other's eyes. "Have you talked with the person you like?" Todoroki asked. Of course, he would get straight to the point, without needing any further explanation. "Well, that's the thing," Izuku started. Here it comes. Izuku's going to confess to Todoroki, and Katsuki is going to have to support Izuku's feelings for that traitor. For how much Todoroki claims to be Katsuki's best friend, he just had to go and take away the love of his life. Izuku opened his mouth to speak again, but a loud cough cut him off. This time, however, it wasn't his own. Normally, he wouldn't think anything of it, but the coughing seemed far too close to simply be another person passing by. It seemed especially suspicious when it didn't stop. Izuku was shocked to turn around and see a familiar blonde hunched over behind another tree. "Kachan?" Katsuki didn't look up. His hand rested on his knees for support as he retched. "Kachan, are you okay?" Izuku's tone was panicked as he rushed over to Katsuki's side. Katsuki continued to cough until he was spitting something out and onto the ground. "Kachan. Kachan, do you have Hanahaki too?" Izuku asked in horror as he stared down at the white petals. Katsuki finally met Izuku's eyes with a pained expression, wiping his mouth on the sleeve of his uniform blazer. Todoroki thought about approaching, but decided it would be better to go and find Recovery Girl. "But how? I thought you had a girlfriend!" "Come to think of it, I haven't seen her in a while. Did she break up with you? Is that why?" Izuku's voice got quieter and quieter as his questions developed into mumbles. He looked closer at the petals, surprised that he recognized them. White Guardias. Secret love. "How did you..." Katsuki's hoarse voice came out forced. "I've been doing a lot of research on flowers recently," Izuku shrugged half-heartedly. "But how could it be secret love if you were already going out with her?" "What the hell are you talking about?" Katsuki growled. "I never had a girlfriend." "What?" Izuku asked in a breathless gasp. "But that girl the other day." Bakugo stared at the other incredulously. "You mean the one that I had never even met and tried to let down easily? The one that I tried to tell you about, but then you ran away before I could even tell you what happened, and then continued to avoid me? That one? You rejected her?" Izuku's eyes went glassy and his lower lip trembled. "You really thought I was going to go out with some random girl I don't even know?" Katsuki scoffed. "But if you don't love her, how could you have Hanahaki?" "Wow, I never thought you were this dense." Katsuki rolled his eyes with a humorless smirk. Izuku pouted, but Katsuki didn't give him the chance to speak. "You really think I wouldn't be affected by you loving someone else? I thought we were close enough that you could have at least told me if you liked someone." "Someone else?" Izuku asked. He was confused for a split second, but that confusion soon turned to anger. Kacchan, what are you even saying? I've been suffering because this whole time I thought you had a girlfriend. I'm so in love with you that it's killing me. Literally. Katsuki felt another coughing fit starting to well up in his throat, but it suddenly dissipated. Wait, you're in love with me. Is that really so surprising? Izuku asked, voice turning sad. I don't know how I could have made it more obvious. Katsuki let out a laugh, then another one. Then he kept laughing. What's so funny? Izuku demanded to know. I already knew you didn't feel the same way, but did you really have to laugh at me? I'm not laughing at your feelings, Katsuki replied. I'm laughing because we're both idiots. We're both suffering for no reason. What are you saying? Izuku's brows furrowed in confusion. Izuku. Katsuki said his name softly as he grasped the other's hands. You have the stupid disease because you thought I don't love you. But I caught it because I thought you didn't love me. You mean you love me? Izuku gasped. I'm so in love with you that it's killing me. Literally. Katsuki mimicked Izuku's earlier words with a grin. Izuku's breath hitched at the admission. He put a hand over his chest and took a few deep breaths. The pain's gone. Yeah, Katsuki whispered, leaning in closer, nearly enough for their lips to touch. Mine too. Just then, Todoroki appeared, recovery girl in tow. There they are. It was Izuku's turn to laugh. I think we have a lot to talk about later. I think we've covered most of it, Katsuki responded, pulling Izuku into a tight hug. Thank you for your concern, Todoroki-kun. Recovery girl patted the boy on the side. I'll give these two a checkup, but I think they'll be just fine. Alright everybody, that concludes the one-shot entitled Idiots in Bloom by Chloe Oodles. I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for listening.